Hello, everybody. It's the top of the 4 o'clock hour in the East Coast of the United States, and I'm thrilled to be joined by Elise Labott, Cosmopolitics. She is in Sag Harbor, home of Teddy Roosevelt, who is rolling over
Or in his
in
grave.
his grave today, looking at the state of the American Republic. There's a long speech that Teddy Roosevelt gave, the very famous "the man in the arena" quote, but that speech was delivered in France at the Sorbonne, and it was titled Citizenship in a Republic. And I would urge everybody to go read it. It's a long speech, but the qualities of character that are necessary to sustain what we have are outlined pretty clearly. There is a woman who was a close friend of George Washington's in Philadelphia, part of society, Elizabeth Willing Browning, and she was the person who asked Benjamin Franklin the famous question, "What is it that you have given us, Dr. Franklin," as he left Independence Hall? And he replied, "A republic, madam, if you can keep it." And the lesser known part of that story is her response was, "And why not keep it, Dr. Franklin?" And he responded by saying, "Because the people sometimes upon eating the meal are inclined to eat more of it than does them good." And so the founders of this country were deeply worried about the potential for the rise of a demagogue. And they were scared of a specific one, of Cleon, the Athenian. And the founders did not write about democracy very often in our founding documents, but they wrote a great deal about the demagogue. And so today, later this evening, on the 250th anniversary of the United States Army, the greatest force for liberation in world history, we will see a force march of a brigade, 5,000 plus men past the American demagogue, the American fascist, Donald Trump on Flag Day in the nation's capital in Washington, D.C. And we're here to talk about it with Elise Labott. And so in Sag Harbor, what's going on?
Well, I was just here, Steve, and it's great to be with you and everybody. I was just here for a prior engagement, a speaking engagement, and it was Teddy Roosevelt might be, rolling over in his grave, but one thing that might give him hope, and actually gave me hope today, here, in this little tiny town, there's a protest going on. It's been going on all day. A lot of these are locals that live here year round and have lived here for decades, families and generations. And, they just wanted to come out. It's a very politically active community, and they just wanted to come out and have their voice known. So even in these little corners of America, obviously everyone's looking in big cities today. But, everywhere you turn, everyone's got an opinion of what's going on. And, just to say, like, we want to celebrate the military. We're proud of the military, but this is not how you do it. These are authoritarian countries like North Korea or Russia. Those are the ones that do military parades. We don't need to show the lethality of the U.S. military. If you don't know by now the lethality, the strength, the dedication, the commitment of the U.S. military, you certainly shouldn't need a parade to see it.
Well, Teddy Roosevelt famously said, "Walk softly
And carry a
and
big stick.
carry a big stick." And so, one of America's aircraft carriers, the Theodore Roosevelt, is nicknamed the Big Stick. And the American president, because he is the commander in chief of the most powerful military in the world, does not have to bluster. And so we see through Trump's blustering, through Pete Hegseth's blustering, an incredible weakness. There is an astonishing profile in New York Magazine about Pete Hegseth and
Yeah.
about the chaos of the Pentagon that is mind bending, but we should all pray that the American military is not sent into harm's way in any type of major conflict under the leadership of these buffoons, because it will be a disaster. And so I want to ask you about what's happening in the Middle East right now. Israel and Iran are effectively at
At
war.
war.
Israel has established air supremacy over Iran, yet Israel is unable to destroy these nuclear weapon sites uh, in all likelihood because they don't have the munitions, the ordnance, and the aircraft to be able to deliver it, to bust through the deep underground concrete layers where all of these reactors are. So the Iranian program has been set back, no doubt. This has been a precise and lethal military strike, but Netanyahu is lobbying the United States, lobbying Donald Trump to finish off the Iranian regime's program for good. And that would require the use of B 2 stealth bombers to deliver the ordnance packages in order to accomplish that. And that issue divides the MAGA base,
Yeah.
particularly the Tucker Carlson wing from Donald Trump. So right now, we're seeing a lot of cautiousness to trepidation on the side of Donald Trump and the people around him about how to respond to the preemptive attack by Israel on Iran. And so, how do you see all of this playing out in this moment where we have the 7th Marines not at 29 Palms in
But
their
in Los
training
Angeles.
cycle,
Yeah.
right? They're in Los Angeles
Yeah.
at the federal building, zip tying people.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that this is exactly true about Trump, and I wrote this about Ukraine, but it's also true about Israel. This is a real, like, Rorschach test for Trump, whether he's gonna lead his this MAGA movement or he's gonna follow it. Because these guys are isolationists. They do not wanna get the US involved anywhere. They don't wanna spend any money. Some analysts I've talked to think more of Trump as like a Jacksonian, right? He just wants to be, as you said, tough, looking at America as strong, just get in and get out when he needs to. But, you heard what Steve Bannon said. You hear what Tucker Carlson said about Ukraine. And now he's even getting some pushback on Israel that's supposed to be the greatest ally right now. Now, you talk about the bunker busting bombs, the mother of all bombs that we used in Afghanistan. I don't see him using it. I think he's, these talks that were a joke to begin with Iran for Sunday, they're off the table. But Trump is still, let's come to the table. If you can't beat him, join him. Come have talks. I think that, I think what was really interesting is Trump was all about telling Netanyahu, don't hit them. But as soon as Israel did it and was very effective, of course, he couldn't help himself but take credit and say, oh, this was excellent. They used American weapons. So I think he's torn between wanting to, join the gang of no one criticizes Israel when they're on the ascendance. They only criticize Israel when they're on the back foot. And what Israel did was really remarkable. I think the reason that they did it now, as you said, was because they were looking to put some of the other facilities that weren't underground, they were looking to fortify them underground. And so they used the ruse of US meeting with the Iranians on Sunday. No one was expecting it. They went ahead. And yes, the Israelis did great damage, but there's still, you see what's happening with Iran. They're responding. They're not doing as much damage as they could have, but still have a lot of damage. Several people killed in Israel, several hundred injured. And this is going to go on for a week, or maybe more. Israel is not stopping, Steve. They're going for the regime. You heard Netanyahu yesterday say to the Iranian people, we rolled out the red carpet for you. We're prepping the ground for you. we made the climate where you can now launch an uprising and topple the regime. They're not going to kill the supreme leader. They're not going to kill the president, but they are creating the conditions that the Iranian people have not had in ages to possibly rise up. And this is where Trump's going to be in really with his base, I think, again, like a gut check moment. Is he going to go out, help the Israelis topple the Iranian regime? Or is he going to follow MAGA that's like, hands off? And this thing about Israel that's always been the closest ally, I just don't think MAGA buys it.
One of the things I want to say is that when you look at this in its totality, you have Tucker Carlson, for example, who has a pseudo historian on his show declaring that Winston Churchill was the bad guy in the Second World War.
Okay.
Hitler was misunderstood.
Oh, yeah,
So there's a lot of anti Semitism that it's rearing its
exactly.
head and is part of any fascist system. And this is a fascist system. And so the idea for Jewish Americans or people who cared about Israel's security that it could be trusted with Donald Trump, with the MAGA uh,
So naive.
core around him. Incredibly naive
Yeah.
because all manner of Nazis are welcome at the Mar-a-Lago table, welcome at Donald Trump's table, including Nick Fuentes. And that is a part of the isolationist wing, this pro-fascist wing that Tucker Carlson is very much a leader on. And so what I want to say though is that this is truly the first international crisis that Trump now faces where we're really going to see at full weight his incompetence. With each day of drama that he creates, the cycle of he makes a threat, he blusters, reality sets in, he backs down, wash, repeat, playing to Fox News. None of that matters in the Middle East. What Jesse Waters says, no one cares about in Jerusalem, no one cares about in Tehran. So the world of make believe uh, is at its end. And so what we're going to see this week is this incompetent menagerie of imbeciles, Pete Hegseth, Kristi Noem, all of them begin to fundamentally, in addition to all of the damage that they've done, that they've wrought, the arson that they've engaged in constitutionally, illegally, and otherwise, the full fruits of their ignorance and their bluster and their foolishness on the world stage from the outmatched, unqualified Steve Witkoff on down and on up, the price for that starts coming due now because, as you say, the Israeli government is going for the head of the snake here. Benjamin Netanyahu aims to topple the Iranian regime, and he is off in the deep water. And so it's always easy to look at this for the first 72 hours make all sorts of assessments through that fog of war. But truth is, no one knows what they're talking about on television. No one has the information of what's happening yet, and so we'll see. But these are really, really, really dangerous moments. While at the same time we have the Seventh Marines that should be in a training cycle, preparing for literal combat in the Pacific are in fact in Los
Yeah.
Angeles zip
Yeah.
tying people. And I want to talk about um, the abomination of what we saw at Fort Bragg,
Yeah.
which is elite troops, 82nd Airborne, total loss of control, loss of discipline in front of the president, in front of the Secretary of Defense. You have airborne troops booing the governor of California, the mayor of LA, booing American citizens whipped into a partisan frenzy. Very chilling for a lot of people. What's your reaction to that
Yeah.
when you see the President of the United States whipping up the U.S. Army airborne forces into a partisan frenzy?
A lot to unpack there. First, let me say something very quick on the anti Semitism, which I think you made a great point. On one hand, he's talking about going after Harvard under the ruse of anti Semitism. Then he's playing footsie with all these white nationalists and anti Semitism. So he's using anti Semitism as a football, but in fact, his administration is a bit anti Semitic. Look, on Israel, Netanyahu saw that Trump is not reliable. He made a deal with the Houthis. He made a deal with Hamas to release an American citizen. He's traipsing through the Middle East with, making deals, not including Israel in any of it. So Israel went ahead and did what it felt that it needed to do. And I think they know that they can't. I think Netanyahu knows by now with this Iran negotiations that they just can't rely on the United States. At Fort Bragg, that was the most unprofessional display. And that's not only Trump whipping them up into a frenzy. That's a failure of command. That's a failure of PR. I'm at the Council on Foreign Relations right now. We have a military cohort, and they were like, sad because, members of the military should not be put in that position to have to you know, Trump is popular in the rank and file, but those commanders should have told their rank and file, we are not political. And so this is part of the larger issue that he's politicizing the military. He has headsets that's talking about this woke, 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 and is not paying attention to what he needs to do to get U.S. troops ready for possibly a conflict with China. He should be working on personnel. He should be working on procurement. He should be working on lethality. The only thing that's lethal is the culture in the military right now. So this was an abomination at Fort Bragg, both what Trump did and both what those troops did. I feel like they should be disciplined. We don't do that. The military, as you've said, on your show many times, but including today, the military doesn't serve a president. It doesn't even serve the people. When they take an oath, it's for the Constitution of the United States. And for them to show disrespect like that to anybody, I would say the same thing if Obama came or Biden or any Democratic president came to a military base and trashed a Republican president. It's just the political culture, the politicization of the military is something that this country has never done. And the whole culture of this country is changing in ways. Forget about values and morals and all that. The whole fabric of society is being changed in ways that I think most Americans don't want.
So I think there's two things that are really important. Is you have a major general there who's the commander of the 82nd Airborne, that his next promotion would be to three-star rank, which
There you
requires
go.
Senate confirmation, and he should not be confirmed for higher rank. The three-star, who is the commanding general of the 18th Airborne Corps, should not be promoted to a four-star rank when he's on the list, and the division sergeant major should retire. Um, the failure of the brass at the division level, at the corps level, at the brigade level is appalling. And this is one of the, again, elite units of the United States Army. This is the 18th Airborne Corps, the 82nd Airborne. This is not Pete Hegseth's National Guard unit. And so it was an appalling, appalling, appalling thing to witness, as is the deployment of the 7th Marines who fought at Guadalcanal, Payalu, Chosin, Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghanistan in Los Angeles. It is inappropriate. It is a desecration.
And it's just
Um,
the beginning, Steve. It's
uh,
just the beginning.
And we're going to have a Supreme Court ruling, I suspect, soon that declares all of this illegal under posse
Maybe.
comitatus, and we will we will see. But certainly, really dire times, dark moments, and what we got to do as Americans is be out there protesting. There are not violent protests today, but there are millions of Americans in thousands of places, from big cities where there's 100,000 out in the streets to small towns and villages where Americans who are told all the time they don't share anything in common, in fact, share a great deal in common. And you saw that with these protests that are not coordinated together, but apart from one another, but share the common cause of defending liberty, defending freedom, defending American democracy in this great American crisis of 2025. And so, Elise, let me leave it with you. You can find Elise at Cosmopolitics. It is a great Substack site. Go there and subscribe. I urge everybody to go check out the Save America movement
Congratulations on
site.
that.
We have a lot of work to do. Was really
Yeah.
pleased. Another committee member, Reverend Barber, spoke to 100,000 folks in Philadelphia. Very powerful oratory from Bishop Barber, and uh, that's going to be on the Save America movement Substack site in a moment if it's not already up. And I urge all of you to be involved, get engaged, be out there protesting. And remember,
Or writing, get a Substack, use your
right?
voice, and it's not, this isn't only, about, Trump himself. It's about the character of the nation, is what you want for your country. Obviously that's in an election, but character is important and these issues are important. So, whether it's in protest or writing or, at the ballot box, just, you know what? We have agency. Like, I think everyone right now feels a little hopeless, but everyone has agency. So use it.
And remember, the United States military belongs to the American people.
That's right.
Um, the American soldier and his legacy, according to Douglas MacArthur in that famous 1962 oration at Thayer Hall at West Point, is the birthright of every American. And so the U.S. Army is being desecrated, made to force march for Trump's Fuhrer parade. And it's an abomination. But remember, remember, the American soldier hasn't been ordered to do anything illegal. And if Trump wants to order them to march, they have to march. So don't blame our soldiers tonight. Don't blame our sailors, our airmen, and Marines. What I do want you all to know is that we're talking to them out of the Save America movement. We will be blanketing the parade route and including all the areas where all the troops are in LA with messages directed onto their phones that will remind them of their constitutional oaths, remind them of their service is to the nation, not to Trump, and remind them about illegal orders and their unlawfulness, and the fact that when a criminal gives an order, even if it is lawful in the sense that the person has the power to give an order, if it's an illegal task, it's an illegal order, and that's a crime. And every American soldier, sailor, airman, and Marine understands this, is taught this, and every American armed forces member who is deployed on this parade route, everyone who is deployed in Los Angeles is going to be bombarded with this messaging from the Save America movement. And for all of you on today, really urge you to listen to Bishop Barber's speech. It's a public sermon. It's an extraordinary moral statement about the power of freedom as a first and fundamental American principle, but also a moral one. And so, thank all of you for getting on this afternoon. Elise, thanks for spending some
Thanks
time
for
with
having
us.
me.
You got it. Take care.
Thanks.